Hi, well I posted a film last year on the Bentley Wood Fair, and at the end of the film I showed a couple of things I'd bought at the fair, and one of them was an old wooden Beetle Mallet. Now a Beetle Mallet is quite rare these days. It's one of those wooden headed metal banded mallets, and they're really good for actually splitting logs because you can hit a steel wedge, and because it's a wooden mallet you don't have steel on steel and the sort of danger with a sledgehammer of bits of metal flying off. So I was quite pleased to see this Beetle Mallet at the fair, and I only had to pay £1 for it. That's all I wanted for it. And the chap almost actually laughed, I think, as I bought it, because he thought, what does anyone want that old? It really was, you know, woodwormy, terrible sort of thing. Anyway, one of my bodger friends had a nice bit of Hornbeam, which is very nice for hammerheads, and I have had this Hornbeam for a while now in my airing cupboard, getting really dry. What I did, I basically chipped off the log. It's completely round as the log, and I've chipped it round and just made it oversized all round by about 1/8 of an inch. And I had sort of thought, well, I'd heat up these rings in my forge and then burn them on, a bit like cartwheels. But actually this has become so dry, this wood now. But what I'm doing, I'm hammering the rings on with one of my blacksmithing hammers, and I'm going to burr the wood over, because as soon as the wood's burred over, that ring will not shift. I find that my blacksmithing hammer with its cross pane here is ideal for knocking this on. I did say it was a tight fit. And it is where the anvil comes in handy. I'm now going to dent over the edge a little bit to keep these rings on. But of course, being Hornbeam, this is incredibly tough, and it's now obviously very, very dry. So it will be difficult, but I'll use again my cross peen here. You begin to see the effect. It is quite hard going, but it's getting there, and I'll do the same to the other end, and then I will get a shaft on this. I've just been examining the old mallet shaft, and it actually looks in quite good condition, and it is riven wood. So I'm going to try and actually revive it. It's complete with wedge still, so I think with a little bit of work that will be usable, and it'd be nice to keep the original. I think this is a replacement shaft, but it's obviously still quite an old shaft, the fact that it's been riven. So I keep a supply of old guillotine cut nails, and here I've got a nice little selection which I'm going to use just to reinforce the hoops. I've now got the nails on the hoops, and they're sort of embedded down and riveted down nicely, so they're quite fairly flush actually, and they're authentic because they've been nicely hammered over. I'm just extending the mortise here for the shaft to go through, just making it a bit wider, and I'll make it actually so that it flares out slightly at the end, so that when the wedge goes in it will bind it nice and strongly. I'm just recutting the slot for the wedge at the moment. I want to give the wedge a bit of a sort of groove to sit in or start in, because it's quite a chunky wedge, and also if you give it a little pocket to sit in initially, it will probably keep there, whereas if it's too tight it will probably drop out. So I'm doing this as a little like 1/4 inch wide groove. There we are, and then the wedge can sit in there. I'll obviously force it in with a hammer. That's looking okay. Well, I'm just cleaning up the hammer shaft itself now with a spoke shave, just to get it to fit nice and tightly. So just doing a bit of squaring off here. I don't want the hammerhead rolling around, so it's going into a slightly squared socket. I do like these old spoke shaves, and it's got an old maker's name. It's Buck and Hickman. Familiar name there. I've got my own little name stamp I put on my tools. Right, ready for wedging and trimming.
I presume it'll be a metric set.
Well, there you are, one mallet, nearly finished, just got to trim the top. It started to rain, so got to work a bit quickly now, but that's given it a new lease of life, which is great, and ready for the woodlands. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. Hello, Tom.